All right, let's fire it up. Today, we're taking a ride through more than 100 years of speed, rebellion, and pure engineering genius. We're going to explore the absolutely incredible story of the motorcycle. But this isn't just a history lesson. We're really on a mission to answer one big question. How does a pretty simple machine, basically a bicycle with an engine strapped to it, turn into this global symbol of freedom and identity? To figure that out, we have to go way back to the very beginning. And that beginning, well, it wasn't just one moment. It was more like a chaotic, brilliant flash of inspiration that seemed to hit inventors all over the world at pretty much the exact same time in the late 1800s. When you look at these early attempts, it's clear the idea was just in the air. First, you've got this American inventor, Sylvester Roper, building a wild, steam-powered bicycle way back in 1867. But the real game changer? That came in 1885. Two German pioneers, Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach, figured out how to attach the very first gasoline-powered engine to a two-wheeler. And then, just 9 years later, another German company, Hildebrand and Wolfmueller, started the first ever production line and gave the machine its official name, the Motorrad, which of course means motorcycle. But let's take a closer look at that first gas-powered bike, the Reitwagen, or riding car. Honestly, it was less a prototype for a vehicle and more just a test rig for their new engine. I mean, it was made of wood, and it even had a set of outrigger wheels, kind of like training wheels, just to keep it from falling over. It was crude for sure, but it was the proof of concept that would change, well, everything. So, the motorcycle was born. But to become a real icon, it had to prove itself. It had to earn its stripes. And its first major test came from two massive forces in the early 20th century: global war and industrial ambition. In World War I, the motorcycle went from being this interesting novelty to an absolute necessity. Horses were just too slow and vulnerable on the battlefield, but motorcycles, they were fast, they were agile, and they could cross really difficult terrain. They became the backbone of frontline communications, with dispatch riders racing to deliver crucial messages, often under fire. This is where the machine really forged its reputation for being tough, reliable, and totally indispensable. And this right here is the perfect example of how the motorcycle adapted. On the left, you've got the civilian Harley-Davidson WL, great bike for its time. But for the military, it became the WLA. The A stands for Army. They totally reworked it. They raised the fenders way up so mud wouldn't clog the wheels. They added these heavy-duty racks for radios and ammo, and they fitted a special oil bath air cleaner to handle the super dusty conditions. It was literally evolution under pressure. And the scale of this production is just mind-blowing. During World War II, Harley-Davidson built nearly 90,000 of these WLA models. Let that sink in. This wasn't some niche vehicle anymore. It was an industrial cornerstone of the entire Allied war effort. After the wars, though, new players emerged with fresh ideas. In 1923, BMW, which used to make aircraft engines, released its first motorcycle, the R32. And with it, they created an engineering blueprint that would define them forever. That signature boxer twin engine with the cylinders sticking out into the air for cooling, connected to a super clean and reliable shaft drive. It's a design so good, so effective, that BMW is still using it 100 years later. Okay, so the first half of the century established the motorcycle's utility and engineering chops. But the second half? Oh, that was all about raw performance, thanks to this absolute explosion of innovation that came roaring out of Japan. And it all kicked off with one machine that earned a truly legendary title, the first true superbike. The 1969 Honda CB750 didn't just introduce a new model, it created an entirely new category of motorcycle. It changed the game forever. See, before the CB750, most powerful bikes were, well, they were kind of shaky, often unreliable, and had pretty terrible brakes. Honda changed all of that in one move. They offered a silky smooth, powerful four-cylinder engine, something you'd only seen on exotic race bikes before, and they paired it with the first ever front disc brake on a mass-produced motorcycle. It was fast, it stopped, and maybe, most importantly, it didn't leak oil or break down. The world was just floored. Honda's revolution immediately sparked a war. Kawasaki had actually been developing their own 750cc bike, but when they saw what Honda had built, they reportedly scrapped their plans and went back to the drawing board with one single goal: beat Honda. Their answer was the mighty Z1, codenamed, and I love this, New York Steak. It had a bigger engine, it had more power, and it officially kicked off the superbike power wars that would define motorcycling for decades. But the evolution didn't stop there. If Honda created the category and Kawasaki started the power war, then Suzuki delivered the final piece of the modern superbike puzzle in 1985 with the GSX-R 750. This was the first true racer replica. It wasn't just inspired by the racetrack. It was basically a full-on race bike that they'd managed to get street legal with some headlights and a license plate. So, when you put it all together, these three bikes created the modern superbike blueprint that we still see today. Honda brought that sophisticated four-cylinder engine and disc brakes to the masses. Kawasaki brought the obsession with raw horsepower, and Suzuki brought that no-compromise, racetrack focus directly to the showroom floor. But a motorcycle is so much more than its specs. To become a true icon, it had to capture our imagination. And that didn't happen in a factory. It happened on the silver screen and out on the open road. This quote from the Guggenheim Museum just nails it. The 1953 movie The Wild One, starring Marlon Brando, almost single-handedly created the image of the leather-clad biker as a rebellious outsider. It was this huge cultural moment that forever tied the motorcycle to this idea of freedom from the mainstream, something a lot of young people were looking for in the very straight-laced post-war era. And this connection just got stronger with real-life legends. You had the ultimate rebel, Marlon Brando, and the king of cool himself, Steve McQueen, both making the Triumph Bonneville an absolute icon of style. You had the ultimate daredevil, Evel Knievel, flying through the air on his Harley-Davidson XR 750. And even on a more thoughtful note, you had Robert Pirsig's philosophical road trip in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which showed the bike as a tool for self-discovery. But here's the thing. While Hollywood was busy selling rebellion, Honda was launching a completely different kind of cultural invasion with its little Super Cub. This bike wasn't menacing at all. It was friendly, it was easy to ride, and it was marketed with the absolutely brilliant and disarming slogan, "You meet the nicest people on a Honda." This was motorcycling for everybody. So just how successful was this friendly approach? More than 100 million Super Cubs have been sold. Just think about that number. It is the best-selling motor vehicle, not just motorcycle, but vehicle, in human history. Its cultural impact wasn't about being an outlaw, but about providing pure, accessible mobility and joy to the entire world. Which brings us to today. The motorcycle has been a tool of war, a weapon of sport, and a powerful cultural symbol. So, where does the road lead from here? Well, the modern quest for performance is evolving at lightning speed. The battleground has shifted. First, it was about pure aerodynamics, like on the gorgeous Ducati 916. Then came a revolution in electronics, traction control, ABS, making bikes safer and faster. Raw power is still king, with supercharged monsters like the Ninja H2R. But the next great frontier? It's already here: electrification. Today's market really reflects this diverse history. It's highly specialized. You've got cruisers making up the biggest slice. Sport bikes are right behind them. But look at that little slice for electric bikes. Yeah, it might be small today, but it represents the single fastest growing segment in the entire industry. It's pointing directly to where the future is headed. Which leaves us with one last fascinating question to ponder. The motorcycle became this icon through the thunderous roar of its engine and its rebellious, untamed spirit. So, as bikes get smarter, safer, and quieter, what happens to the rebellion? That's a story the next generation of riders is going to have to write.